The guy there on reception wouldn't even, for the service team, didn't even make eye contact when he was talking. It was like he was busy doing something else and didn't really want to be bothered. Now in Cornwall, and I'm headed down to Land's End. Common features of being down south, and it's no different in Cornwall, is the craziness of the traffic. As you can see, everything is a little bit busy, let's say. Busy. So I'm on the Multistrada Ducati V4S with various bits added, like the aluminium luggage, the centre stand. Heated grips will be added on the first service on Friday that I'm having done at a motorbike dealer's in Plymouth, GT Motorcycles. And the experience, I have to say, has been very much kind of awkward and difficult, because I've arranged for various things to happen at various times, and each and every time, apart from collecting the bike itself, when they said they would do something, they then said they couldn't do it. So fitting the luggage before I collected it, they said if the parts arrived on Friday afternoon, they would fit them for me to collect on Saturday afternoon. And when I rang to check the parts had arrived, they had, and that was great, I thought. But then they said we can't do them. And I said, well, you said you could do them. So anyway, after like a sort of a 15-minute up and down with various people on the phone, they decided they could do them, and then literally 45 minutes after, they emailed me to say they were done. And I thought, okay. And then I said to the guy, well, when I come in for the first service, they'll definitely do the heated grips, won't they? No problem. And he said, absolutely 100%, I put it on the job card. I decided to go in yesterday because I'd had a chat with them on the phone about the possibility of them fitting some engine sort of crash bars at the time of the first service. And I rang up, I said, have you got the parts? Yes, we have. In fact, we'll check and ring you back. So checked, didn't ring me back, but I rang them back, and they said, yes, we've got the parts, we've opened the box, we've checked them, they're in black, they're all ready to fit on Friday. So I thought, well, I'll go in anyway and see what these accessories that they've got on offer are, because it said on the on hold music that you get, when you ring in and nobody's answering, that they did a whole range of rucker gear. And I was thinking, well, I've had mine now for quite a while, and perhaps it is time to change it for new. And so I did. Went in and arrived and said, where do you do your rucker gear? And the guy said, oh, it's in the building next door in the Honda section. So I went into there, walked upstairs, had a look round, couldn't see it, asked the lady, and she said, oh, we don't do it now. And so I sort of said, well, the guy next door said you did, and I've driven up here, or ridden up here today. It's like an hour and a half's ride from where I am down in Cornwall to Plymouth. And I said it also still says on the on hold messaging on the telephone that you're also doing it. So maybe you need to sort of pass that message around and also remove it from your on hold messaging. And they kind of looked at me a bit strange and sort of said, oh, it's all pre-recorded. I said, well, yeah, but you just get that bit changed. Anyway, so that was that. And then I walked back in to the bit that was supposed to be the Ducati bit, or Ducati, or however you want to say it. I mean, I'm from the north of England, I say Ducati. And the service workshop manager said, actually, I have to tell you that we can't do the engine bars now on Friday with your first service. And I said, well, I booked it in earlier and you said you could. What's changed since? And she said, well, I found out that you're also having heated grips fitted. I said, well, how have you found out? She said, well, because you rang up and told the guy earlier when you booked it in. I said, well, yeah. And she said, well, yeah, but we can't do the first service, the heated grips and the engine crash bars at the same time, because we weren't aware of the heated grips being fitted until you told us. And I said, well, the sales guy promised me 100% that he'd added it to the job card. So I have to say that the experience, frankly, has been terrible so far. I haven't yet been in for the first service, and I won't put this video out until I've been in for the first service, so that I can sort of say what happens then, because so far, really bad service. And what's even worse is, it's not just the service is bad, but the way they sort of talk to you is a bit like they're talking down to you. You've just bought you just sort of spent 24 grand on a brand new Ducati motorbike, and they're talking to you like you're a pillock. It's just unbelievable, it really is. And none of them seem to have time for you. I mean, the sales guy had time for me because I was buying a new bike and clearly the big commission it for him. But the others were like, well, just like not making eye contact. The guy there on reception wouldn't even, for the service team, didn't even make eye contact when he was talking. It was like he was busy doing something else and didn't really want to be bothered. When you asked him a question, the tone of his voice, again, don't want to be bothered with you. And I sort of think, well, if you want customers to come back, or if you want customers to give a good report, the old two, customer loyalty, customer advocacy business, then you treat people with respect and you do what you say you're going to do. Promise, then deliver. Not promise and never deliver without a huge fight. So what I ended up having to do was buy the engine bars and bring them back in a box strapped to the back of the bike, because the other thing she said was, well, if I can book you in earlier on Friday, then we can get them done. And I said, well, I'm already like a minimum of an hour and a half's ride away, but on Saturday last week when I came in, it took me 2 3/4 hours. So what I don't want to be doing is racing up here under pressure to get here earlier when I already know that traffic can be appalling. And with on that Saturday trip, I'd done like the best part of an hour of filtering. I'm not joking. Down the dual carriageways, filtered for like 2 separate half-hour sessions. And it is so tiring. You constantly watching. I mean, filtering for a minute or two is not a big deal, but filtering for like half an hour the traffic was basically just stationary on those two dual carriageways for, like, you know, at certain points 15 miles, 20 miles, whatever. So that was the experience of buying the new Multistrada V4S.
Well, believe it or not, the first service attitude was even worse. They didn't fix the brake squeal at all. They said it would take about 2.5 to 3 hours when I first arrived. That's to do the first service, install some heated grips, to check for the brake squeal and to check the engine crash bar torque settings. It ended up taking them just under 5 hours to do it. This is while I'm on holiday in Cornwall, having bought a brand new bike from them, and they really didn't seem to care, although they kept saying they did care. It was a very strange situation, never been in that situation before. Even ended up speaking to the MD of the company, and still it just didn't seem right to me. Anyway, you make your own judgment. That was my experience, and I certainly won't be going back there.
And the next question is, so what do I think of the bike? Well, at the minute, I have to say I'm just getting used to it. There's some quirks with this bike that I didn't have with the 1260S, like, for example, the clutch lever. The biting point on the clutch is right at the end of the clutch lever, so if you're sort of pulling away from a roundabout, a junction, whatever, and you get to the point where you think, oh, the clutch should be biting now, I'm going to start moving, and you still don't, then you're sort of potentially rolling backwards. If you use the hill hold assist on some of the hills down here are just crazy. Some of the junctions here are like insane. They're on such steep and tight bends at the top of the steep hill, and there's no level off point at the top, so you're literally standing at, you know, in some cases 45 degrees ridiculously. Hill hold assist goes on, it holds the bike, but then as soon as you start to put the throttle on, let the clutch out, the hill hold assist comes off and the bike starts rolling backwards, unless you've got your foot on the back brake, which is hard to do because you're trying to keep the bike upright with both feet. Oh man. So the bottom line is, it isn't familiar, which is, you know, that's kind of what you would expect with a brand new bike, but you can't describe it as being more easy to ride either, without retraining yourself for, I'm going to suggest, probably weeks to get the kind of finessing of various things. So for example, this business about the rear brake controlling some of the front brake, well, I've never had that before on a bike. I've had it the other way around, but I tend to use the rear brake for slow maneuvers and things, and when it starts applying the front brake, it changes the whole characteristics of the bike. It becomes unstable when you're doing a slow maneuver, because it's pulling on the front brake straight away. And I also think it's more top heavy, this bike. It feels very tippy, if that makes sense. I am just getting used to the bike, so the engine sounds are different, the way it applies power is different, the low end torque is not as powerful as the 1260. The low end grunt in general is not as powerful as a 1260. I mean, higher up, then yeah, you start to get it in, but in the running period, you're kind of like restricted to what the revs can be. So once the first service is done, I'll probably be able to give a much fairer assessment of my personal view of what the bike rides like. Now, when you watch YouTube videos about this bike, as you do, as I did, ahead of deciding to buy it, because I wanted to keep the 1260, I didn't really want to sell that, but I couldn't afford to have that sat in the garage alongside a monkey bike, alongside this, and frankly probably wouldn't have had enough space to do it comfortably. I kind of got the impression that this was the perfect bike. You know, nobody kind of really said anything, or well, I say nobody, I mean the videos I watched, I probably watched 10-15 of them, and everybody was singing its praises. Fantastic bike, and it isn't a bad bike, don't get me wrong, but there are some quirks with it. I think the fact that it's got the larger front wheel definitely makes it less stable in corners and slow manoeuvring. It may well be better in off-road conditions, but you're not going to take this bike off-road. So it's a bit like they've done it just to compete with, well, I suppose BMW, KTM, whatever. It just shouldn't have a big front wheel, in my opinion. The one that had the same size wheel front and back on the 1260, you could throw that round corners with the Pirelli Scorpion Trail 2 tyres on, and you'd have quite a lot of confidence with that bike, even though it was a heavy bike. With this, at the minute, I'm really struggling to get that confidence. And whether it's other features as well as the big front wheel, I don't know, but just feels different. This feels more like when I had the BMW GS on the cornering. I don't know what the latest ones are like for riding. And also down here, they're obsessed with speed cameras, absolutely obsessed with these speed cameras. They're absolutely everywhere. Look at it, that yellow average speed camera thing. I mean, the amount of money they must have spent down here on installing all of these speed cameras. But I think the riding stuff I'll kind of get used to. I'm going to have to, aren't I? I've just bought this bike and I've got to get used to it. The engine and the way it works, I'll get used to that too. The slow manoeuvring stuff, well, I'd become very adept on the 1260 at being able to turn that round with my feet off the ground in a tight space. And with this, I think whether I ever get to that point, I don't know. But on a heavy big bike like this, that's a very, very useful skill to develop, because manual handling of these bikes isn't easy. I think my whole holiday is going to be peppered with little issues. I'm just here parked up in McDonald's, just finished my McDonald's and about to go, getting ready, and then this van pulls up here at the side that I think you might not be able to see very well on the camera. Looks like it's full of Indian tourists, and they all sort of just missed the mirror on the left hand side, and then the driver came back and started going into the passenger side of the vehicle, opened the door and banged it straight into my side pannier, my brand new side pannier just down here. Luckily, I think it's alright, but gee. BBC Radio 4. And thought for today. If you're riding your motorcycle in or around Cornwall, you're probably going to feel somewhat frustrated, because the roads are snarled, traffic is everywhere, tourists around every corner, roundabouts, crazy junctions and steep hills are all to be expected. Welcome to the wonderful, wizardry, wholesome. Welcome to Land's End. One way, 10 miles an hour. So, I'm on the grass. We're on the grass in the car park. Please use both lanes, speed bumps, Land's End.
So go at the very bottom of this road, go round the corner and through that where that really lumpy roof is, We'll just go straight
Oh,
to
yeah.
the bottom and round the corner. You'll see other bikes parked.
All right, up there. All that road round. A world famous Land's End signpost.
Well, if you got this far, thank you very much for watching. Do take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again hopefully soon with more videos and a bit more detail on how well I'm getting on with the Multistrada V4S. Bye bye for now.